It sat on a table in a laboratory in New Mexico, small, smooth, almost beautiful. It weighed about 6 kilograms, roughly the same as a newborn baby, the size of a softball, and it was the most dangerous object on the face of the earth. 2 men touched it, 2 men died. Both deaths were slow, agonizing, and almost identical, say, separated by less than a year. Scientists who worked near it gave it a name that has never been forgotten: the Demon Core. This is the true story of what happened and why one small laboratory changed nuclear safety forever. The Demon Core was a sphere of plutonium-239, one of the most radioactive and fissile materials ever created by human hands. It was built as part of the Manhattan Project, the top-secret American program that produced the world's first atomic bombs. The core weighed 6.2 kilograms and measured roughly 89 millimeters across. It contained just barely enough plutonium to reach what physicists call critical mass, the exact point where a nuclear chain reaction becomes self-sustaining, releasing a lethal burst of energy and radiation in an instant. This event is called a criticality accident, one of the most feared moments in all of nuclear science. The core had been built for a third atomic bomb after Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but Japan surrendered before it was needed. So it sat in the laboratory at Los Alamos, waiting, and scientists, being scientists, decided to experiment with it. The experiments had a name that sounds almost poetic and deeply reckless. They were called Tickling the Dragon's Tail. The idea was to bring the plutonium core as close to critical mass as possible, close enough to study the chain reaction without actually triggering it. Scientists surrounded the core with neutron-reflecting materials like beryllium or tungsten carbide, pushing it closer and closer to the threshold, then pulled back just in time. The margin between safe and catastrophic was razor thin, sometimes just the movement of a hand, the shift of a single brick, the slip of a tool. These were the most brilliant minds in the world, but understanding danger and respecting it are two different things, and in the electrifying atmosphere of post-war nuclear science, some lines began to blur. The dragon's tail was being tickled, and the dragon was getting impatient. August 21st, 1945, late at night. Almost everyone has gone home, except 24-year-old physicist Harry Daghlian, working alone with only an untrained security guard nearby. Daghlian was stacking tungsten carbide bricks around the Demon Core, each one nudging it closer to criticality while he monitored the readings. Then his hand slipped. The last brick he was holding dropped directly onto the core. The instrument screamed. A burst of blue light, Cherenkov radiation, flashed through the room as invisible energy tore through his body in under a second. He grabbed the brick with his bare hand and threw it off. The reaction stopped. But it was already too late. Daghlian had absorbed a lethal radiation dose. He walked himself to the hospital. Over the next 25 days, his body fell apart. His hand blistered and blackened. His immune system collapsed. His organs failed one by one as radiation destroyed his cells from the inside. Harry Daghlian died on September 15, 1945. He was 24 years old. The Demon Core was found intact and returned to the lab. The experiments continued. May 21st, 1946, 9 months later. This time there are witnesses, 7 scientists standing in the room. Louis Slotin, 35, was demonstrating an experiment he'd done many times before. A beryllium dome sat over the core, held open by a tiny gap maintained with nothing but the blade of a flathead screwdriver. The screwdriver was all that stood between the core and critical mass. Slotin held the dome in one hand, the screwdriver in the other, keeping the gap open by feel alone. No safety mechanism, just a steady hand. At 3:20 p.m., the screwdriver slipped. The dome dropped. The gap closed. The core went supercritical. The blue flash came instantly. A wave of heat hit everyone in the room. Slotin reacted in a fraction of a second, flipping the dome off the core with his bare hand and stopping the reaction in under 1 second. But in that 1 second, Louis Slotin had absorbed a radiation dose no human body could survive. In the immediate aftermath, Slotin did something remarkable. Despite the nausea already rising, he had each of the 7 witnesses stand exactly where they'd been standing and sketched a precise diagram of the room from memory. That diagram saved lives. It let doctors calculate the exact dose each person received. The others survived. Slotin, closest to the core, had absorbed roughly 10 times the lethal threshold. He told his doctor calmly that he didn't think he'd survive. He was right. The first days brought intense nausea, then a brief, cruel, false recovery. Then his hands blistered and swelled, his organs began failing one by one, and seizures took hold as his brain swelled. Louis Slotin died on May 30th, 1946, 9 days after the accident. He was 35. The 7 others survived, though some suffered long-term effects for the rest of their lives. After Slotin's death, everything changed. Hands-on criticality experiments, the kind done with screwdrivers and bare hands, were banned completely. Remote-controlled equipment became mandatory. The Demon Core itself was scheduled for the Operation Crossroads nuclear tests at Bikini Atoll, but was pulled at the last moment. In 1946, it was melted down, its plutonium folded back into the American stockpile. The object that killed 2 men simply ceased to exist. But the lesson it left behind became foundational. The principle of defense in depth, building multiple independent safety barriers so no single human error can cause catastrophe, traces directly back to this moment. Remote handling, automatic shutoffs, continuous monitoring, all of it grew from these 2 deaths. Daghlian and Slotin weren't reckless fools. They were brilliant scientists working in an era when the rules were still being written. Often in blood, their deaths wrote some of the most important ones. A screwdriver slipped. A brick fell from a tired hand. 2 of the most brilliant scientists of their generation were dead before their mid-30s. The Demon Core is gone now, melted down, dissolved into history. But the lesson is still alive in every nuclear power plant running right now, in every safety checklist, in every rule that says no single human error should ever be enough to cause a catastrophe. Harry Daghlian and Louis Slotin paid for that lesson with everything they had. The least we can do is remember it. If this story stayed with you, share it and drop a comment below. Did you know about the Demon Core before today?